to NEK-VT Rocks. My guest today is Syndi White, who's originally from New Hampshire. And you've been living here 2 years now, something like that?
Yeah, about 2.5.
And you are the director of O.C.C.A, which is Orleans County Community... No?
Orleans County Citizen Advocacy.
Citizen Advocacy. What is it?
Well, let me tell you a little history about what citizen advocacy is, because it's a mouthful when you say our name.
Yeah.
It was started back in the 1960s by a guy named Wolf Wolfensberger, who was really big in the movement of deinstitutionalization and normalization of people with developmental disabilities. You know, at that time, there was no special ed. Kids weren't allowed in school.
Right.
Parents were told to institutionalize their kids. So it was a really dark time for people with disabilities. And he was a big advocate of trying to get people into the communities, back to their families, living on their own if they can. But one of the things that he saw as a problem is that these people were they were devalued, they weren't heard, they weren't active, valued members of the community. So he started this movement that went all through the United States and in different countries, where community members, volunteers, citizen advocates, would be matched one-to-one with a person with developmental disabilities and become their friend and their advocate. To have a real friendship, not one that was paid, not one that was artificial, but something that could last through the years. And the idea was that person would be more valued as a community member because they'd be paired with valued community members. So that's where it started. And it became really popular through the 70s. But in 1988, a small group of people in this area decided that they were going to form a citizen advocacy group.
So there wasn't one up here then?
There wasn't. So that was the only one. There was one other one in Vermont at the time.
Wow.
And the reason they were all over the country and they were supported with state and federal money, but then the federal government came up with this law that every state had to have an advocacy organization. But those advocacy organizations that you see now are legal advocacy.
Right.
So the two things that they funded were legal advocacy and like a family support. So you're going to see that in every single state.
Right.
That's where the Developmental Disabilities Council money comes from. It was from that. So these citizen advocacy groups that were funded were no longer funded. That money was going away because they were switching to something else. And so as a result, a lot of the organizations disappeared and got to the point that we are the only ones in Vermont right now. We service Orleans County. And there's one in Massachusetts, there's one in New York, and there's a big one down in Georgia, because Georgia still funds them as their big advocacy. And it's very unique because it's volunteers.
Right.
You know, and one of the reasons that this kind of an organization kind of has disappeared a lot is because now there's a lot of services for people with developmental disabilities, there's special education, there are a lot of supports. But the reason why we think this is so unique and still so needed is because these are not paid people. You know, paid people come into somebody's life and then they get a new job, they leave.
And they move on.
And these people with disabilities form such relationships with these people and then they're gone. So it's more hurtful for them. They don't have that stability. And plus, they're representing the agency or the state. They're not representing the person. So our advocates can actually help people if they're having trouble with services, or if they're having trouble with their landlord, or if they need help learning how to do a simple task like cooking or budgeting or something like that. So that's who we are. When I tell people, when they say, well, what is it that your organization does, I put it in simple terms, and I say, it's very similar to the Big Brothers, Big Sisters, except with adults with disabilities. So you can easily picture that.
How many volunteers do you have?
Right now I have about 20 volunteers.
For a population of how many?
I have about 35 people.
Wow.
But what's happening now, over the years, we've got less and less matches. We've had over 100 matches, and some of those matches have lasted 30 years. We have volunteers and people together that that relationship has lasted. But over the past couple of years, we've got less and less and less volunteers. And what happened with COVID is that I'm seeing an increase in people wanting to become members, people with disabilities. So our membership now is growing, but the volunteers are less and less. So because people don't want to volunteer now in this time when they,
when they're told not to.
When they're told not to.
Right.
So we've gone from in-person meetings. You can't do those anymore. We used to have big events with all our members and our advocates together. We can't do that anymore. So we had to really step back and say, what are the needs? How can we meet them? And how can we change as an organization? For one thing, if you don't have the volunteers to do the one-to-one matching, but you have all these people that really want to make connections, what do? We have a lot of people that live isolated lives anyways.
Right.
That are lonely. We have people, when you think of developmental disabilities, there's a range. We have people that need one-to-one care 24 hours a day. We have people that live on their own completely, and work and drive a car.
Yeah.
And then we have the whole middle range. So, so some of our people have no families. They're, people that are in their 40s and 50s and 60s living on their own, and they have nobody. And a lot of times people think, well, it's developmental disabilities, you get services. A lot of people don't have services. They either are just a few points off from being able to qualify for services, or they just never got them and don't want them. They've gone through their lives, they're much older now. So the need is there. The need really is there to help these people and to bring them out of isolation, out of loneliness. It's not a healthy situation.
Right.
So that's where we're at.
Are your volunteers, the ones that are paired, able to even meet with their companion at this point?
No, and we're saying no because that's what
the state says.
That's what the governor says. And
but it is an essential service. Yeah.
I know, but that's the way it is right now because there's the different households, and there's and a lot of our members have pre-existing conditions that put them at risk, so they can't have, people coming in and out. It's really, it's a scary thing for those members that do have to have people staff coming in and out. So so far, none of our members have gotten COVID, thank God. But so that's where we're at with that. In response to the need, the increasing need, and the lack of volunteers, we're starting to do things differently. We're trying to, in addition to the one-to-one matches, which we still want to get, we're also doing things, activity-based things, where we can have a small group together, or we could get people so that even though they don't have that one-to-one match, they can do things together and make friendships. So what we're doing, there's 3 different things. One, which is a challenge, is to do online, just like everybody else, the Zoom. And the people, our members that are doing it, love it, really love it. They're planning activities, and it's just wonderful to see them be able to form new friendships too, or to renew old friendships that they haven't been able to keep up because they can't get together themselves, So that's been really good. But the problem with that is that a lot of our members don't have access to technology. They don't have computers or tablets. And the other thing is a lot of people don't know how to use them. And what's interesting, it's not just the people with the disabilities, but it's our community advocates too. We have a lot of people who, especially a lot of our older volunteers that are not up on technology and need training too and support.
You and I both live in an area where technology is fragile, to say the least, and sometimes getting online is really challenging.
A challenge. Even cell phone. I have some advocates that have to call me from down the street from where they live because they can't get the service.
I don't have service all over the house.
Really?
And I live downtown.
Now, do you get internet?
Yes. But as more people have gone online because of COVID, it's sort of certainly not got the oomph that it had before. It's,
Well, yeah, and I had someone come and help me because I had my daughter was home and doing college
Yeah.
online, and the internet was out. Like,
Yeah.
we couldn't get the internet. Like, why all of a sudden? And it was because of the usage issues. So
Right.
they came and they put an extra line in for me, but only after I was a squeaky wheel. I was calling every
I
single
bet you
day
were, and
complaining.
rightly so.
Yeah, but it's a real issue
Yeah.
around here.
And that will certainly impact on both your volunteers and
Both.
your clients.
So what we like to do, one of the things that we're hoping to do, is to be able to do some fundraising or get grants in order to get the hardware, to train people how to use it, because even after this COVID thing is over, this is we're finding it such a wonderful way for people to connect. People that could not connect before, people that are housebound, this
Right.
opens a world for them. And in order to get them the right equipment and to give them the training, that's just opening a whole new world of skills for them and the ability to be social. So that's a really important thing we're trying to do.
So funny, because most of us are saying, as soon as this is over,
I
the
know.
better, and we never ever have to Zoom again.
Me too, I hate Zoom.
Yeah, exactly.
But for someone who's alone
Yeah, it's
and has no
wonderful.
connection and is not seeing anybody for months on end.
Yes.
But the thing to remember is some of these people, that was their life even before this. And the only connection for some of them that they had were our O.C.C.A. volunteers that went in and took them out to lunch once a week, or took them out shopping, or
Yeah.
took them to the fair, or to a concert, or to events, or did hobbies with them, came over and did puzzles together, or played cards together, and talked.
Yeah.
They had somebody that they could call once a week and to have a conversation. Or if there was a problem, they could tell them what the problem is. Whether it was a problem with one of the staff people that they were having, or with our landlord, or with it not getting medicine or health services, something that people could help with, like you would help a friend or a
Right.
family member. So that's where we're at with. It's challenging, and there is a
It
need.
is challenging. It must be really challenging getting any funding to be able to do any of this.
Yeah. Well, in addition to our online project that we're doing, we also, the other thing we're trying to do is outdoor activities. Before we would do the events, but we didn't have like ongoing outdoor things. So we want to switch and try to, because it's the safest way. But it's also what we're finding good, because people have different interests and different skills and different abilities. And one of the things that they would really like to do is do things just like everybody else, but with support. Skiing, both cross-country, downhill, snowshoeing, skating, hiking, fishing, swimming, kayaking. When you think of the seasons.
Right.
Exercising, they were going to do outdoor yoga, things, a lot of outdoor things that are separated and safe, but healthy activities, just like everybody else.
Right.
And what's good about this too, it isn't just the people with disabilities, our members, doing that, but our volunteers equally. Everybody enjoying things
Right.
together, being part of the community together, being friends. So that's another thing. And the other one was doing small indoor activities, like arts and crafts things, cooking lessons. We want to do some workshops on, say, money management and budgeting and different life skills. And what we're finding now is we're having more members actually work as a group with our online groups, kind of like a support group, and also talk about what it is they want, what it is they need, what would they like to see happen, what kind of activities. So it's just really gone from an organization that was just the matching to something it's turning into something much bigger and more inclusive.
Was this a transition you expected when you started this job?
It's a transition that I was hoping that we could make.
Well, that's great.
Because what I saw, and I've only been in this position a year and a half, what I saw was, when you look over the period of time, less and less people doing those matches, and then more and more people wanting, so they were on a waiting list.
Right.
But instead of that, well, okay, you're still on the waiting list, you still want the one-to-one, but what can we do in addition to that, so that we can bring people together, form those connections in the community and one-to-one friendships. You know, we have members becoming friends with disabilities, not just the without too. So, you know, it's a very inclusive kind of thing, and I'm very excited about it because I think there is a need here, and I'm glad you're having me here because I want to get the word out. I want to get the word out in 3 different areas. First is volunteers.
Yeah.
We can't run without volunteers. Oh, I should tell you a little bit about our funding, because that's interesting.
I bet.
We're very small. We have only one part-time paid person, and that's me,
That's
the
you,
executive
right?
director. So I do everything from grants and fundraising and the website and the social media and to working with people and planning activities. So if we don't have volunteers, we can't do much. So we need volunteers to become advocates, or if someone wants to volunteer to say if they have a skill they'd like to do. Oh, I'd like to teach knitting. I'd like to teach art. I would like to. I'm a cross country skier. I would love to teach a small group of people how to cross country ski. So anything that you have an interest in that you think you'd like to teach other people to do, that would be great. If you want to become a one-to-one match with somebody, to have somebody to become a friend with, that is needed because I have a waiting list. And board of directors. That is such a big thing. We have a small board of directors, and we need to expand it. It's a working board. We need people that are willing to do fundraising, that are willing to do planning and actually help with all the kinds of activities and events. Somebody that wants to be involved. So not a lot of time involved in it. You can do as little or as much as you want,
Right.
but the key to that is we need a working member. We need somebody that's actually willing to help out.
How many do you have on your board?
Right now we have 6, so it's a small board. We have 2 of our members are people in the program with disabilities, so that
Good.
we have a good representation of them. And I'm hoping to get our members with disabilities, advocates, community members, community members with connections and skills that know how to fundraise, that know that kind of thing, how to run a board. Right now we're looking for a treasurer. We lost our wonderful treasurer. He was on so many boards he had to cut down, Steve Mengel. He's wonderful. But we need to replace him with another treasurer, someone who has those skills to be able to do the kind of simple accounting work for a nonprofit. So if anyone out there has those skills and would like to step up and do it, that would be much appreciated too. And the third thing is more members. I want to get the word out to who we are and what we do. If you're someone with disabilities, or you have a family member with disabilities, and you think they could benefit from having a one-to-one friend and mentor and advocate, or if they don't want to do that, but they really need a group to belong to where they can make new friends and do activities and be part of the community, send them our way, because those are the 3 things that we really need right now.
So I would bet that finding people in the community who would like to be part of an activity-based group is easier than getting your volunteers.
Right. And of course, we need the volunteers to help with the activities. But
Right.
But I think that's even easier too, if someone had an interest in a certain skill.
I mean, if for example, I said I could do a weekly kayak group, which actually I could, how would the kayaks appear?
Well,
Because that would be a challenge.
right. So that brings us to funding. Right now, we have a very small budget, and we are funded with appropriations from the towns in Orleans County. We get a small amount of money. Small grants and fundraising. So we need to up our fundraising. And I applied for a grant that I just got. It was a small grant from the Vermont Community Fund. But what that's going to allow us to do is we could rent kayaks. We can rent equipment. I can get arts and craft supplies. And I can do small stipends for people to actually do the thing. So if you were going to
Cool.
teach kayaking, I could give, a small stipend for your time too. So I'm applying for a lot more grants.
Cool.
So I'm hoping one for technology, that's a big thing, and one to expand the programming types of things like we're talking about. In a lot of things there's fees, so if there's fees to use the cross-country ski
Right.
trail or that kind of thing, everything costs money.
Does the city rec department work with you at all?
No, they don't.
Here's a stupid question. Why not?
Well, we haven't done this in the
Okay.
past, so that might be something. So far and this got canceled, but I worked with the Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Mhm.
We were going to do a fishing event, and
Yeah.
they were going to. So that was a wonderful collaboration because they
That's great.
would provide everything and pay for it. There was no cost involved in that, so that was really nice. And we're going to do that. We were trying to do it in the fall, and then that storage thing happened with
Yeah.
and so they weren't sure how it was affecting the fish and stuff. So they said, well, since we don't know, and it happened like the day before the event, so we had to cancel. But we're going to do it in the springtime. So to have those kind of collaborations and things, so that's something we might be able to partner with. I was going to call the trails, the Memphremagog.
Memphremagog trails?
Yes.
Yeah, they rent snowshoes and skis
Yeah.
very affordably.
Yeah, so that's probably where we'll do that. So it's just a matter of getting the volunteers to help out with those things. If you want to volunteer, Pam, I know you're really good at all that. And you probably know people too. So yeah, so that's where we're at with the program, and that's what we do. If people want to get in touch with us, they can or check us out. We have a website, and that's OCCAVT.org, and you can contact us through there. You can hit the button and.
Do you have a Facebook page?
Facebook too, the O.C.C.A. Facebook page, and you can message us through that, or you can see, I post things of what we're doing.
So one of the cool things about social media is it's a really good way of engaging people and sort of keeping yourselves visible. It's a pain in the neck to keep going to a
Right.
website, as you know.
Yeah, and most people are on social media now.
Right.
Well, I say that, and then I talk to people, and they say they don't even do Facebook. So I try to do all different avenues. So I do that, and I do the Facebook. So, yeah, that's the best way to get in touch with us and
Yeah,
see what
I
we're
mean,
doing.
there are certainly other Facebook pages that you can connect to, which are a way of keeping some of it going.
I post on, you have the Newport Rocks one, I'll post
Yeah.
for different volunteer stuff.
Yeah, and there have to be I understand that becoming it can be a life commitment to take on a single person as a friend in that way, but that might feel overwhelming. But to do a small group project or a 6-week kayaking, I'm using that again as an example, that doesn't seem overwhelming.
No.
That seems really doable.
No, and through that, people make friends.
Yeah.
And it's friendships and connections, and those
Exactly.
connections grow. It's just like when I moved to this community, I had absolutely no connections at all. And by doing things and talking to
Right.
people and getting involved in little things, you start to build those connections and become part of the community.
Right. That's what happened when we moved here. We had no connections with anybody, and it's amazing how fast it happens.
Yeah, yeah. So, if you think of our people in all our communities, all in Orleans County, and the thing was so spread out and it's so rural.
Yes,
To-
and no
to-
transportation.
I know, and to be able to make those connections. Oh, transportation is another roadblock. Because we'll have people that really, really want to do something, but they live out in the middle of nowhere, and there's
how
no
do they get here?
transportation. They don't drive. How do they get there? So that's another big thing that I'm really looking into how we can work around that.
Can
and
can RCT help
well,
with any
I
of that?
contacted them, and that's an expensive thing too.
Yeah.
So I'm going after a grant to see if I can get some funding in order to do that.
I bet
so
your
that-
grant writing skills are really
I
getting
like
up
writing
there.
grants, actually.
That's good.
But yeah, but the grants that we get are small. We're a small organization. We're
Right.
not going to get one of those huge grants.
No, I know.
So it's a bunch of piecing things together. If people want to donate to us, you can go right on our website. It's real easy. Hit that donate
Just
button.
click.
$10 even would be
Yeah.
we would just anything because our budget's so low right now and our needs are so great. But
Do you have a physical location?
we don't. We do not have overhead. We don't have an office. It's just me, and I work out of my house, and that's it.
Huh. Do you ever think about having a physical
They
location?
did it one time, and they
Right.
just did not have the funding to sustain it. You know, if we get to the point that we can get enough money, but that involves having a steady source of fundraising, having a big. Right now, we have very limited fundraising. We don't have
Right.
anyone to do it. So, you know, I did an annual appeal, and that's about it right now, you know. And that doesn't yield much. And especially now with COVID, you know, there's people aren't giving like they used to because the businesses are just
They don't have it.
don't have the money, you know.
Right.
So I hate even approaching
I know.
people knowing that everybody is in the same position.
Yeah, I mean, the end of the year and continuing now, just in emails alone, all begging. And it's not that I don't understand why, but wow, it's overwhelming.
It's coming from everywhere. Luckily, a lot of the foundations, though, are really focusing on meeting the needs of organizations that are changed by COVID. So you see a lot of things coming in saying,
That's great.
you know, how has COVID changed your organization? What is it you need to keep going? So,
Yeah.
you know, we're not seen as essential. I actually wrote, one of the foundations put this survey out and said, you know, just asking, what do you think? And I wrote back a big thing saying I'm hoping that foundations start looking differently at what's considered essential services.
Mhm.
Because while we're not like a food bank or housing, what we provide is essential to those few people that we
Mhm.
serve. We don't serve hundreds and
Right.
thousands. But it is essential in that these people are totally isolated and aren't getting what they need.
Right.
You know? And when you think of what was going on where people weren't even allowed to get together,
Right.
you know, how are they getting their food? How are they getting
Mhm.
to a doctor's appointment? And how do they set that up? Because before, when things were flowing, there was services
Right.
that they could get. But now,
And then everything stopped.
yeah.
Poof.
And these people are left behind, you know,
Right.
because they can't, a lot of them just don't have the skills to really get out there and advocate for themselves. So I got a response back from that foundation I wrote to, and they said thank you so much, because it was a different perspective.
Right.
And in that survey, I said to them, I hope that when you're looking at how you fund things, that you think outside the box now, because that's how we all have to think. You know, whoever thought we'd be doing all these Zoom classes for schools?
I know.
You know, that's totally new thing. And all these people working from home. How about all the companies that didn't want to have their employees work from home because they didn't think they'd get production out of them?
Exactly.
And now they realize, wow, it's cutting our overhead. Now it's a
Right.
whole new thing, you know. So there are positives that have come out of some of this.
Yeah. The population you're working with, are they mostly centered around Newport, or, I mean, we're a big rural area.
Most of the people now that we have are in the Newport, Derby area.
Mhm.
That's our biggest. We have people as far down in Greensboro, Craftsbury,
Wow.
Barton, Glover, you know. So it's spread out, but most people, and it's because with the population, where's the most population? Derby and Newport. So
Right.
that's the same with our organization. We have a lot of people. And there's a lot to do in these areas too, so a lot of our activities are based here.
Mhm.
So that's why it's important for us to get transportation to be able to transport people here. And we try to do things in other sections, but we have fewer people there. And so then we have the problem of getting all the people that are in Newport and Derby, driving them all the way down to Greensboro or something. So it's
It's a long way,
it's,
right.
yeah. So as we get more people, I'm hoping we get more people throughout the county so that we can hold activities, say down in Greensboro, and we get a nice small group of people down there.
Mhm.
And we can have small groups of people all over the place. So I'm just hoping to grow the organization with both volunteers and members and see where we go with it, you know.
So right now, what would really help you is people who are willing to volunteer for a project or for a person, or for both.
And for the board of directors.
And yeah, well,
That is our huge, that's our huge push now, because, yeah,
yes,
we need it. You know, we need it for planning and fundraising and activities and, you know,
Yeah.
because they're our biggest volunteers, you know,
of course.
as far as doing stuff.
I know.
So,
it's-
yeah.
Yeah.
But
board
I have
members is always a challenge.
And I have members, individuals that call me every week saying, have you found an advocate for me yet? Have you found, and it's heartbreaking. And I have to say, no, you don't have any volunteers. I'm like, no, I don't have any. And I hate saying it. I have no volunteers yet. It's not like I'm not trying. I just can't get anyone to do it. So, yeah, if you have that in your heart that you can, even if you just see the person once a month and call them a couple times a month, that would be so good. That's, call once a week for somebody makes a world of difference for them. They feel like they have somebody important in their life, a friend that they can connect with and just talk to.
Yeah. I mean, that, when you say it in that way, obviously you're good at the heart appeal. It seems so doable that isn't a big ask.
No.
It really isn't.
No, and that's the thing. Once we make those matches, it's between the individual and the volunteer, how much time they want to spend together, what they want to do together, what that relationship is going to be. That's something they work out
together.
Right. So we have people that see each other all the time every week, and we have others that see each other maybe once a month.
Yeah.
And just keep in touch, and if they're there, they know that they are there. If they need them for something, they need to touch base, and so it varies.
Yeah. Years ago, we had somebody in our lives who had a variety of challenges. We saw him once a year because we took him to a festival, a folk festival.
Yeah.
And he became part of a crew that we were working on, and was it sort of incorporated it in the festival for that week. And then we didn't see him for the next year, but he was right there the next time.
And I bet that was really meaningful to him,
too.
I really appreciated that.
And it felt like such a nice thing to do, and for him to be involved.
Yeah. Yeah, for people to be involved in the community is important.
Yeah.
I have one member who, his advocate just takes him to church every week. That's the thing they do.
Mm-hmm.
And by going to church every week, he also has that whole community of church. So that, for him, is very, very important, that he has that thing. But they only do that one thing.
Yes.
But it's an important thing, and that they love doing together.
Sure.
And that's all it is. I have someone else who, she loves to play cards and do puzzles, so that's what they do together. So it can vary. And then I have a member who's very active, loves to ski, loves to snowshoe, loves to ride a horse. So, we have people with different interests, different skills, abilities, and it's just like the regular out there in the community people.
Yeah.
And I always think, well, there's somebody out there that has the same interests as you that would probably love to have somebody to go for a hike with.
Yes.
Go for a bike ride, So I'm sure you're out there.
Yeah, and there are certainly people right now who have time.
Right. And I'm hoping that, by late spring, early summer, that's optimistic, but that people can start to get together and start to do things again without restrictions.
There's no reason not to be able to get together for outdoor activities now.
Right. Yeah.
And
hopefully that'll continue, yeah.
I don't think that that's, quote, forbidden. I mean, I certainly see groups that are beginning to get together.
Yeah. I don't know. From week to week it seems to change, so.
Yeah, I know it changes minute by minute.
Ski areas are open. I won't get into all that, but the ski areas are really packed. So I don't know what the difference of that is, or if, a couple of people get together and go snowshoeing, so.
You would think that last year, for example, I cross-country ski, not particularly well, but I do it, and I'd been in Primo's Woods, and as I was coming back along the bike path, a group came towards me, some on skis, some on snowshoes, that clearly were part of a group in the way that you describe it. I don't know if they were connected with your organization.
No, they weren't.
But it was really nice. They were having a blast.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
So that's what we're hoping to do. We're hoping to do more of that kind of thing and involve the community to help us.
So maybe, do you know if that was another organization that was doing it?
I have
No idea. Huh. Interesting.
There's a lot of service organizations, that provide services to people. So it might have been, like a group,
right.
a group home or something
Yeah,
like
could
that.
be.
but I don't know.
Yeah, back when we had IROC, which is way before your time, but that was the Indoor Recreation Centre, a lot of people would come with a care attendant or
Mhm.
assistant, friend in that way, but it was professional
Right.
relationship, which is different. But they would come in most days and participate. Some went in the pool, some did the walking track, but they did something that was active, and there were 2 or 3 of them, all with separate
Yep.
care people. So you'd see the little grouping of the care people and the other guys having a good time elsewhere. But
Yeah.
but it worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, one other thing that we're hoping to do too is, kids have services. They have, they're in school till they turn, I think it's 22 in
Mm-hmm.
Vermont. And once they turn 22 and they're out in the world, they go from having all kinds of structured organizational,
Yeah.
things to do to nothing. Some of them are very limited.
Right.
That whole web of people and
Mhm.
friends and everything. I mean, it happens to people that graduate from high school too. You have your big friend group, and all of a
Right.
sudden, everybody's gone their own way.
Mhm.
But that's a need that we see. What happens to people once they turn 22? If we can do some kind of transition kind of thing, so that starting our group starts at 18, so it's an
Mhm.
adult group. But starting at 18, if we can connect with young people that would like to have friends, that would like to
Sure.
do activities, that would like to be able to have something that they continue after they graduate from high school,
Right.
after their programming's
Makes
done.
perfect sense.
So they still have their friends, they still have the one-to-one
Right.
volunteer person with them that can help them navigate some of the stuff that they're
Right.
going to be encountering. So that's another thing that we've been talking about that we'd really like to start up. So we have all these things, and all is dependent
And
on
all you need now are people.
volunteers and money.
So let's see what we can do about this. We
So-
unfortunately are out of time. It
Okay.
goes really fast.
Thank you so much.
I will make a commitment to do a kayaking
Excellent.
thing
Thank
in the spring, summer, and by then there shouldn't be any argument about what we can do as
Oh,
a,
that
as a
would be
group.
so good.
And you can easily socially distance in a
Oh, yeah.
kayak.
And I'm
So
hoping-
hopefully this will generate some other people with specific projects.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be able to get the word out to the community.
Thank you for coming in. This will go out on TV and it will go out on Facebook, and
Wonderful.
you can send it anywhere you like.
Okay, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.